Senate Democrats are going to be bringing the For the People Act to the Senate floor next week. And now what version of the bill we're gonna see, what version Senator Chuck Schumer is gonna bring has yet to be determined. Of course, Princess Joe Manchin of West Virginia laid out his long list of demands, which he swears will have bipartisan support. They did include things like expanding early voting and disclosing of dark money. But he also floated a national voter ID registration in order to vote. And surprisingly, as was discussed on the show earlier in the week, Stacey Abrams came out in support of some kind of compromise when it comes to the For the People Act, and said she might support it. But guess who is not willing to support this revised For the People Act? That's right, Mitch McConnell, the other side of the aisle. In a statement, Mitch McConnell said, in reality, the plan endorsed by Stacey Abrams is no compromise. It still subverts the First Amendment to supercharge cancel culture and the left's name and shame campaign model. It takes away redistricting from legislatures and hands it over to computers. And it still retains the For the People Act's rotten core, an assault on the fundamental ideas that states, not the federal government, should decide how to run their own elections. That was Mitch McConnell. If you were that was totally his voice. But let's hear it from his mouth. So that was a statement, and here he is with a number of other Republican senators voicing his opposition to even this version of the For the People Act.
There's now a debate among Democrats over a revised version produced by one of the Democrats yesterday, which has been endorsed by Stacey Abrams. So I would make this observation about the revised version. It still turns the Federal Election Commission from a judge into a prosecutor by taking away the 3-3 balance and making it 3-2 Democratic. And in what is of extraordinarily dubious constitutionality, would remove redistricting from state legislatures and hand it over to computers. Equally unacceptable, totally inappropriate. All Republicans, I think, will oppose that as well if that were to be surfaced on the floor.
So there you have it, this attempt at bipartisanship from Joe Manchin, who's I guess one of the few Democrats that still believes in it, now completely shot down by Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell. David, what's your response to Mitch McConnell's, I guess, his assertions in this statement, and also just what this means for Joe Manchin?
Excellent impression, by the way. I didn't really need to see this statement from Mitch McConnell to know his position on any kind of changes to voting rights. In 1998, Democrats and Republicans passed the Bipartisan Campaign Reform Act, McCain-Feingold, and the Supreme Court ruling that overturned that was called McConnell versus FEC. This has been where he's been at for close to 20 years, and nothing was going to change about that. So I mean, we have a kind of a unwritten rule at the Prospect that we don't write about things that aren't going to pass. And so you'll see very little on our site about the For the People Act because it's not going to pass. And it very much lets Joe Manchin off the hook to allow him to play this narrative of putting forward a bill that he thinks would be supported by left, right, and center, when he knows that Mitch McConnell is in no way going to be interested in any kind of compromise on this. And this is no different than Joe Manchin deigning to decide to support the PRO Act, which is this pro-union measure, when there's absolutely not 60 votes for that. So as long as Joe Manchin is against the filibuster, it does not matter where he is at on voting rights. It does not matter. So the cart before the horse is what's going on here. So that's my thoughts on it.
And just a quick little reminder. the states that draw their very gerrymandered legislatures or voting districts, excuse me, they use computers. So Mitch McConnell's wrong about the idea that computers can't draw these heavily partisan gerrymandered districts. They do already. And also he had a problem with the FEC reform, which by the way, right now the FEC's tied 3-3, 3 Democrats, 3 Republicans. We don't get anything done. Nothing happens. The For the People Act is proposing that change to 5 people so that there's at least a tie-breaking vote in there. I'm gonna see if we have Cenk Uygur on the line. Oh, there he is.
Hey, will you look at that?
There he is.
So
That
first
guy.
of all, let me just clarify. When I said drop it, I didn't mean like this. So the power went out in the TYT studio, and we've figured out who it is. Of course, it's the Russians.
Every time.
David's thinking, don't start this. Don't start this.
I knew it. I knew it.
Okay, no, seriously. I wanted to weigh in on what you guys were saying. So I actually slightly disagree with David. We're gonna wind up probably in the same place, but David, I don't think that they're involving Stacey Abrams and having a conversation about For the People Act and the exact compromise they're going to iron out. If they don't have some sort of pre-agreement with Manchin that he is going to get rid of the filibuster, because if otherwise, I mean, you would have to be, whether you're Stacey Abrams or Democratic leadership overall, it would be a fool's errand to have a conversation about compromising parts of the bill without getting an agreement ahead of time that, well, obviously we're gonna have to get rid of the filibuster to do this. I mean, that would be absurd. I mean, that would be so incompetent and ridiculous that I think it's even beyond Democratic leadership, and that's saying a lot. But we might wind up in the same place because I think Sinema's headed towards flipping to Republican. I would be, at this point, I've got that above 50%, and I would be surprised if she didn't flip to Republican. So just when they think they've got it all figured out, Sinema's gonna roll a grenade in there.
David, any thoughts?
That's news to me. The Arizona Republican Party right now is led by people who have commandeered ballots and are looking for bamboo in them. If you think that they're going to vote for Kyrsten Sinema, when every statewide officer has subsequently gone further and further to crazy town, I just don't see that ever happening. So
yeah,
and clearly Kyrsten Sinema knows that.
Does she?
She's our crazy, Cenk. Why do you want to give her away?
Yeah,
it's a completely different level of crazy.
No, it's certainly possible that she goes independent, technically, like Murkowski did, rather than Republican. But she missed the January 6th commission vote. That is a very bizarre vote to miss if you're a Democrat. And those votes are usually not missed because you had to go to the dentist. And then today, Politico has a story out about how she's trying to be the next John McCain. And it's all talking about how she doesn't care about the Arizona Democratic Party and what they think. Meanwhile, she's trying to emulate a Republican. So I think Sinema is going to be a bigger problem than Manchin. So those are the key leaves.
That could well be without flipping parties. But I think the larger context of what you're saying is that it's going to be really, really hard, even if this is the exemption, to eliminate the filibuster for legislation. And it's not just a Joe Manchin problem. And it's not just a Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema problem. It's a Dianne Feinstein problem. It's a John Tester problem. It could be a Jack Reed problem. It's a problem of the old lions who know the Senate for what it's been for the last 30 years, and it's a problem of moderates who frankly don't want to be on the line for having accountability on passing legislation. So and letting the door open a crack for the purpose of voting rights they would see as allowing the genie to come out of the bottle. So I unless you get an agreement on the filibuster first, I don't think that, and maybe voting rights is the place. That's going to be the red line. Personally, I don't think that's going to be the red line. I think the red line will be when Republicans try to bankrupt the full faith and credit of the country by not voting for the debt limit, which comes up in the fall. That's going to be, I think, the red line if anything gets done. But as far as this is concerned, I just don't see it.